I am Sidonia 34, a financial advisor in Boston. Growing up in a struggling Vermont family taught me the value of financial stability early on. After years of supporting my parents and brother, I was excited to host Thanksgiving in my new home, hoping to strengthen our bonds. Little did I know that dinner would expose painful truths about my family relationships that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. Before I tell you what happened at that disastrous dinner, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to deal with ungrateful family members. My childhood in Vermont shaped who I am today in ways I am only now beginning to fully understand. My parents, Richard and Marianne, raised my younger brother Aaron and me in a small town where everyone knew each other. We lived in a modest two-bedroom house that always needed repairs my father would start but rarely finish. My father had big dreams, but lacked the business acumen to make them successful. He jumped from one failed venture to another, from a lawn care service to a home renovation company to a food truck that lasted barely 6 months. My mother worked part-time at the local library, bringing in just enough to keep groceries in the refrigerator when my father was between jobs. The financial instability was a constant source of stress in our household. I still remember the hushed arguments late at night about bills, the calls from collection agencies, and the creative excuses my mother would make when we couldn't attend school functions that required money. From an early age, I was determined to create a different life for myself. I threw myself into my studies, recognizing that education was my ticket out. While other kids were hanging out at the mall or going to parties, I was working at the local diner after school and studying until midnight. My guidance counselor recognized my potential and helped me apply for scholarships. When I received a full ride to a prestigious business school on the East Coast, it felt like all my hard work had finally paid off. College was transformative. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who had ambitious goals and clear plans to achieve them. I double majored in economics and finance, graduated summa cum laude, and landed an internship at a top financial firm in Boston. By 28, I was making 6 figures as a financial advisor, helping wealthy clients grow their assets while carefully building my own portfolio. My brother Aaron took a different path. 2 years younger than me, he never shared my drive or focus. He drifted through community college, changing majors 3 times before finally getting an associate's degree in communications. He moved from job to job, never staying anywhere long enough to advance. When he was 25, I paid for him to take a certification course in digital marketing, hoping it would give him a stable career path, but he quit halfway through when he decided it wasn't his passion. As my career flourished, I became the family's unofficial bank. It started small, helping my parents when their furnace broke during a particularly brutal Vermont winter. Then it was medical bills when my father needed surgery and their insurance didn't cover all the costs. When the 2008 recession hit, and they were at risk of losing their home, I stepped in to help with mortgage payments. I even funded another of my father's business ideas, a local tour company that folded within a year. For Aaron, I helped with college tuition car payments when his vehicle broke down in rent when he was between jobs. I never kept track of exactly how much I gave them over the years. It just seemed like what a successful daughter and sister should do. My financial advisor colleagues would have been horrified by my lack of boundaries, but these were my family. How could I enjoy my success while they struggled? What I didn't realize was how these financial dynamics were shaping our relationships. My parents began calling more frequently when they needed money than on my birthday or just to check in. Conversations increasingly revolved around their financial challenges, rather than my life or accomplishments. When I was promoted or received an award, their congratulations always seemed to circle back to how my success could benefit the family. Aaron oscillated between gratitude and resentment. Sometimes he would thank me profusely for my help. Other times he would make comments about how easy everything was for me, or how I'd forgotten what it was like to struggle. The truth was that I worked 70-hour weeks and lived frugally despite my income saving and investing wisely, while they continued to make the same financial mistakes. Everything changed when Aaron met Jasmine 2 years ago. They had a whirlwind romance and were married within 6 months. I was happy for him, hoping that having a partner would provide stability and motivation. Jasmine was beautiful, confident, and worked in retail management at an upscale boutique. From our first meeting, something felt off about her. She asked pointed questions about my career and salary within minutes of being introduced, and her eyes widened when she saw my watch, immediately asking if it was real. As they settled into married life, I noticed Aaron's social media showing an increasingly lavish lifestyle. There were posts about luxury vacations, designer clothes, and expensive restaurants, none of which aligned with what I knew about his income. When I gently asked about it during one of our increasingly rare phone calls, he brushed me off saying Jasmine had connections and they got special deals. Family gatherings became uncomfortable as Jasmine would make passive-aggressive comments about my success. She once asked in front of everyone if I was dating anyone, and when I said I was focusing on my career, she replied, "I guess some people have to choose between success and happiness." My parents laughed uncomfortably while Aaron looked at the floor. The distance between us grew wider. Aaron and Jasmine began to skip family events or leave early. My calls to him often went to voicemail. When we did speak, he seemed distracted and eager to end the conversation. Still, I held on to hope that we could rebuild our connection. When I bought my new home in a beautiful Boston neighborhood, I decided to host Thanksgiving, believing that creating new traditions in my space might reset our family dynamics. I had no idea that day would change everything. I spent weeks preparing for Thanksgiving, determined to create the perfect holiday experience. My new home was a beautiful three-bedroom colonial with a spacious kitchen and dining room perfect for entertaining. I'd been saving for years to buy it, and this would be the first major family gathering there. I wanted everything to be perfect. I researched recipes, ordered a free-range turkey from a local farm, and spent days making homemade cranberry sauce pies from scratch and all the traditional sides with gourmet twists. I decorated every room with tasteful autumn-themed decor, set the table with the fine china I'd inherited from my grandmother, and even created personalized place cards with handwritten notes of appreciation for each family member. The day before Thanksgiving, I cleaned until every surface gleamed and prepared guest rooms for my parents and Aaron and Jasmine, who would be driving in from Vermont. I wanted them to feel welcome and comfortable, hoping that the warmth and effort I put into hosting would somehow bridge the growing distance between us. My parents arrived first around noon on Thanksgiving Day. My mother stepped through the door, gave me a quick hug, then immediately began walking through the house, running her finger along shelves and making comments. "This furniture must have cost a fortune, Sidonia. I hope you got it on sale," she said, examining my living room sofa. "And these hardwood floors will be a nightmare to maintain. You should have gone with laminate like we told you." My father gave me a distracted hug before asking where the TV was, explaining that there was a football game he didn't want to miss. Within minutes, he was settled in my den, volume turned up high, a beer from my refrigerator already in hand. He hadn't commented on the house at all. I swallowed my disappointment and continued preparing the meal, my mother following me to the kitchen, where she began opening cabinets and drawers without asking. "You always were extravagant with your spending," she said, picking up a Le Creuset Dutch oven. "How much did this cost? $200, $300 for a pot?" "It's an investment piece." "Mom," I explained, trying to keep my voice light. "It will last forever and I use it all the time." She made a dismissive noise. "Well, when you have money to throw around, I suppose you can justify anything. By the way, your father's car is making that noise again. We took it to the mechanic and they said it needs a new transmission." $8,000. Can you believe it? And there it was, the first financial request barely 30 minutes after their arrival. I busied myself with basting the turkey, not responding directly. "I have some wine chilling," I said instead. "Would you like a glass?" Aaron and Jasmine were supposed to arrive at 2, but by 3:30 they still hadn't shown up. My mother had called them twice, but they didn't answer. I tried not to let it bother me, focusing on keeping the food warm without overcooking it. When they finally arrived at 4, Aaron looked uncomfortable, but gave me a genuine hug. "I'm sorry we're late," he said quietly. There was an issue with Jasmine getting ready. Jasmine swept in behind him, wearing a cocktail dress, more appropriate for a New Year's Eve party than a family Thanksgiving. She air-kissed my cheek and handed me a bottle of expensive champagne. "I thought we'd celebrate in style," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She knew I didn't drink alcohol, something I'd mentioned multiple times since meeting her. "That's thoughtful," I said, accepting the bottle. "Let me show you both around before we eat." As I gave them a tour of the house, Jasmine ran her hand along the walls and furniture, much as my mother had done, but with a different energy. Instead of criticism, she offered backhanded compliments. "This place is almost as nice as my friend Alexis' parents' summer home in the Hamptons," she said, examining my dining room. "Of course, theirs has an ocean view. But you've done well for yourself considering what I wanted to ask, but instead, I smiled and continued the tour. When I showed them the guest room where they'd be staying, Jasmine frowned at the queen-sized bed. "We sleep on a king at home," she said. "Aaron needs his space, don't you, honey?" Aaron looked embarrassed. "This is fine, Jazz. It's just for 2 nights." As we made our way back to the living room for appetizers, I overheard Jasmine whisper to Aaron, "Did you tell her yet about the cards?" "Not now," he hissed back. "We'll talk about it later." My stomach tightened. Credit cards. Were they in financial trouble? I pushed the thought aside and focused on serving the appetizers. I'd prepared crab stuffed mushrooms, brie and croûte with homemade cranberry compote, and a charcuterie board with artisanal cheeses and meats. Jasmine picked at the food, taking small bites and leaving the rest. "These are interesting flavor combinations," she said. "Very creative. I usually prefer traditional cuisine myself. Simple classic flavors." My mother jumped in. "Sidonia always has to do things differently. Even as a child, she couldn't just follow a recipe. Always had to add her fancy ingredients." I felt my smile becoming fixed. "Would anyone like more wine?" I asked, refilling my mother's glass without waiting for an answer. As the afternoon progressed, the undercurrent of tension grew stronger. Jasmine made several comments about my single status, asking if I ever had time to date with my demanding career. My father remained in front of the TV except when called for food. My mother alternated between criticizing my cooking techniques and dropping hints about their financial needs. By the time we were ready to sit down for dinner, I was already emotionally exhausted. But I held on to hope that the beautiful meal and setting would somehow elevate the occasion. I had created a stunning tablescape with candles, fresh flowers, and fall foliage. The turkey was perfectly browned, and all the sides were arranged in my best serving dishes. As we took our seats, I felt a moment of pride. Whatever else was happening, I'd created this beautiful experience through my own hard work. I just didn't realize how quickly it would all fall apart. When we were all seated around my dining table, I suggested we begin with our family tradition of sharing what we were thankful for. I hoped this might shift the energy toward gratitude and connection. I went first, saying I was thankful for having my family together in my new home and for the opportunity to host our holiday celebration. My mother went next. "Well, I'm grateful for Sidonia's generosity," she said with a pointed look at my father. "Without her, we wouldn't have been able to keep our home during those rough years. She gives so much to this family." There was something in her tone that made me uncomfortable, as if she was setting the stage for something, rather than expressing genuine gratitude. My father nodded. "Yes, we're very lucky to have such a successful daughter." He cleared his throat. "And we're hoping that generosity continues." He glanced at Aaron, then quickly looked away. Aaron shifted in his seat, studying his plate intensely. When his turn came, he mumbled something about being thankful for family and new beginnings. Then it was Jasmine's turn. She smiled brightly, looking directly at me. "I'm thankful for this lovely meal and for getting to know my husband's successful sister better. I heard you got quite a bonus this year. 6 figures, wasn't it?" I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. I hadn't told anyone in my family about my year-end bonus, which wouldn't even be finalized until next month. How could she possibly know that? "Where did you hear about my bonus?" I asked, keeping my voice even. Jasmine waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, Aaron mentioned it. Didn't you, honey?" Aaron looked up startled. "I don't remember talking about that." "Sure you did," Jasmine insisted, "when we were discussing our future plans." I turned to Aaron confused. "I never told you about my bonus. It's not even finalized yet." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. My father broke it by asking for the gravy, and conversation shifted to safer topics for a few minutes. But Jasmine wasn't done. "We just put a deposit down on a vacation property in Florida," she announced, cutting across my mother's story about a library patron. "It's a gorgeous condo right on the beach. We're planning to rent it out part of the year for income." "That's a significant investment," I said carefully. "Congratulations." My mother beamed. "Oh, how wonderful. You know, we've always wanted a place in Florida. Maybe come visit. You absolutely should, Jasmine said. The master suite has a private balcony with the most amazing sunset views. I looked at Aaron, who was studying his plate again. He worked as a marketing coordinator for a small local business, and Jasmine managed a retail store. Neither position would support a second home, especially in a desirable Florida location. When did you become interested in real estate investment? I asked Aaron. Before he could answer, Jasmine jumped in. We've been planning this for ages. The property values in this area are skyrocketing. It's the perfect time to buy. With what money? The question slipped out before I could stop myself. The table went silent. Aaron looked up, his expression a mix of shame and defiance. We financed it, he said quietly. Along with the boat, Jasmine added cheerfully. And my new car. My father perked up. You bought a boat too. Just a small one, Aaron mumbled. It's a 28-foot cabin cruiser, Jasmine corrected. Perfect for weekend getaways. We docked it near the condo. I felt a growing sense of dread. How much debt had they taken on Aaron? I began cautiously. Those are major purchases. Are you sure the timing is right for all this? Jasmine narrowed her eyes. Not everyone wants to wait until they're middle-aged to enjoy life, Sidonia. I'm not suggesting you should wait indefinitely, I said. But taking on too much debt at once can be risky. We're managing just fine, Jasmine said sharply. Aaron cleared his throat. Actually, Sid, we did want to talk to you about something. Jasmine shot him a look, but he continued. We're having a bit of an issue with some of our credit cards. A bit of an issue, I repeated. The interest rates are killing us, he admitted. We thought maybe you could help us consolidate the debt with your financial expertise and connections. I set down my fork. How much credit card debt are we talking about? Aaron looked at Jasmine, who gave a small nod. About 50,000, he said quietly. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. $50,000 in credit card debt on top of a condo, boat, and new car. It was financial suicide. $50,000, I repeated, stunned. Aaron, that's an enormous amount of high-interest debt. We know, he said, staring at his plate again. But we have a plan. If we could just get a consolidated loan with a lower interest rate, or if someone could help pay it off. Jasmine interjected, looking directly at me. And there it was, the real reason for their attendance at Thanksgiving. Not family connection, not gratitude, but another financial request. I took a deep breath. Aaron, you're looking at hundreds of dollars in interest every month. How did this happen? It's not like we planned to get into debt, he said defensively. Things just added up. What things? Designer clothes, luxury vacations, a Florida condo you can't afford. I was trying to keep my voice level, but my frustration was mounting. Don't judge us just because we want to enjoy our lives, Jasmine snapped. Not everyone wants to be a workaholic with no personal life. I turned to her. It's not about judgment. It's about basic financial responsibility. No one should be carrying that kind of credit card debt while simultaneously taking on new luxury expenses. Jasmine tilted her head, a smirk forming on her lips. Why does it matter to you how we spend our money? Unless you're worried we'd expect Big Sister to bail us out again. Her voice took on a mocking tone. But isn't that the family pattern? Your parents only love you when you're paying their bills. The table fell silent. I stared at her, unable to believe she'd said that aloud. The worst part was that her words had struck a nerve, voicing a fear I'd never fully acknowledged to myself. I expected my parents to defend our relationship, to reject Jasmine's characterization. Instead, my mother laughed. A short, harsh sound that sliced through the silence. Well, she's not wrong, is she? My mother said, looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. You do like to be the family savior, and we're not getting any younger. Your father hasn't been able to work full-time in years. She took a sip of wine. You're not welcome unless you clear your brother's credit card debt. And while you're at it, we could use a new car. My father nodded along, adding, that transmission repair is just a Band-Aid. We need something reliable before winter hits. I looked at Aaron, waiting for him to say something to defend me, or at least look uncomfortable with the direction this conversation had taken. But he just sat there, eyes down, silent. Complicit. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. The pattern had been too close to see, suddenly came into sharp focus. I wasn't family. I was an ATM with emotions they had to manage to ensure continued withdrawals. I felt strangely calm as I stood up from the table, my napkin falling unnoticed to the floor. "You're right," I said, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. "And I've been blind to it for years." The room fell silent as I remained standing, looking at each family member's face in turn. No one would meet my eyes except Jasmine, who continued to wear that self-satisfied smirk that had cracked open the truth of my family dynamic. Actually, I said, my voice stronger now. I know exactly how much I've given this family over the years. I track it for tax purposes. My father's head snapped up. "You write off what you give us on your taxes." "Not as deductions," I clarified. "I categorize my expenses, including family gifts. My financial records are meticulous. It's part of my profession." I walked over to the sideboard where Aid left my tablet, brought it back to the table, and pulled up a spreadsheet I'd never intended to share with them. "In the past 10 years, I've given this family $342,000, I said, turning the screen so they could all see the detailed list. "That's not including birthday gifts, Christmas presents, or the value of professional financial advice I've provided for free." My mother gasped, and my father went pale. Even Jasmine's smirk faltered for a moment. I scrolled through the categories. 78,000 for your mortgage payments during the recession, 53,000 for dad's medical bills, 42,000 for your roof heating system and other home repairs. I turned to Aaron. 36,000 toward your college education, 22,000 for your car and related expenses, 11,000 when you were between jobs. I hadn't realized how much it all added up to until I started tracking it properly 3 years ago. The total had shocked me then, but I'd pushed the discomfort aside, telling myself this was what family did for each other. Jasmine recovered quickly, leaning forward. "So you've been keeping score? That seems petty for someone who claims to care about family." "I'm not keeping score," I said calmly. "I'm keeping records. There's a difference." "Well, family isn't about money," my mother said, though her eyes kept darting to the figure on the screen. "I agree completely," I replied, "which is why I'm surprised that every call, every visit, every holiday conversation eventually circles back to what you need from me financially." I pulled out my phone and opened my text messages. I scrolled through the recent conversations with my parents and Aaron, turning the screen to show them. "In the last 6 months, you've called or texted me 27 times," I told my parents. 23 of those communications included requests for money or mentions of financial challenges you were facing. Not once did you ask about my well-being, my work accomplishments, or my personal life. I swiped to the thread with Aaron. "With you, it's 17 communications, 14 involving money in some way." Aaron finally looked up. "That's not fair, Sid. I ask about you." "You ask how I'm doing, then pivot to financial issues before I can even answer," I said. "Last month when I told you I was up for a promotion, you congratulated me and immediately asked if that meant a significant raise because your car needed repairs." My father pushed his plate away. "So what are you saying, that you're keeping track of every penny now, holding it against us?" "I'm saying, I just realized that our relationships have become transactional," I answered, "and that hurts more than I can express." "You think you're so perfect," my mother said, her voice rising, "just because you were good with money and the rest of us struggled. You have no idea what it's like to worry about paying bills." "Mom, I worked 3 jobs in high school," I reminded her. "I lived on ramen noodles through college to stretch my scholarship money. I worked 70-hour weeks for years to build my career. I know exactly what financial stress feels like." "Well, your brother has a wife now," she said, as if that explained everything. "They want to build a good life by drowning in credit card debt while buying luxury items they can't afford," I asked. "How is that building a good life?" Jasmine leaned forward. "Just because you chose career over family doesn't mean the rest of us have to live like that." I stared at her. "What are you talking about? I've prioritized this family to my own detriment for years." "You know what she means," my mother jumped in. "You're 34 and still single. No children. All you have is your job and your money." That revelation stung on a different level. Did they really think my life was empty because I wasn't married with children? Did they not see the rich friendships I had, the mentoring work I did with underprivileged girls, the community I had built? Last month at book club, my mother continued. "Jean's daughter said she ran into you at a restaurant. You were dining alone on a Friday night. How sad is that?" I felt my cheeks burn. I've been celebrating closing a major client account that night, treating myself to a nice meal at my favorite restaurant. I've been proud, not sad. Did you also tell Jean that I funded your kitchen renovation? I asked quietly. My mother blinked, taken aback. What does that have to do with anything? Because I recently found out from Aunt Sarah that you've been telling the extended family that I'm stingy and never help you out. There was a moment of shocked silence. My father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. We never said that, my mother finally sputtered. I just had a long conversation with Aunt Sarah last week, I said. She was surprised when I mentioned helping with your mortgage because you've told everyone you've never missed a payment thanks to Dad's careful financial planning. My father's face flushed red. We don't need to air our financial difficulties to the whole family. It's private, but it's not too private to ask me for money, I countered, or to paint me as selfish to relatives while simultaneously taking my help. Aaron finally spoke up. Look, Sid, nobody thinks you're selfish. We all appreciate what you've done. Jasmine rolled her eyes. Oh, please, she likes playing the hero. Makes her feel superior. I turned to look at her directly. You don't know me at all. I know you're alone. She shot back. No husband, no kids. Just a big empty house and a bank account you use to buy your family's affection. And there it was, the most painful truth laid bare by someone who barely knew me, yet had observed enough to weaponize my deepest insecurity. I looked around at my family, my parents who had turned every interaction into a financial transaction, my brother who couldn't or wouldn't stand up for me, and his wife, who had just verbalized the fear that had been growing inside me for years. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I'm done, I said simply. I will not be providing any more financial support to any of you. Not for credit card debt, not for a new car, not for anything. From this moment forward, our relationship will be based on mutual respect and genuine care, or it won't exist at all. You can't be serious, my mother sputtered, her wine glass frozen halfway to her lips. I'm entirely serious, I replied, still standing. But were your parents, she said, as if that single fact should override everything else. And am your daughter, not your personal bank. After everything we've done for you, my father said, his voice rising. We raised you, put a roof over your head, food on the table. Yes, you did the basic legal requirements of parenthood, I acknowledged, and I appreciate that. But it doesn't entitle you to a lifetime of financial support, especially when you show no interest in me beyond my ability to give you money. Jasmine scoffed. So dramatic. This is exactly what I was talking about, Aaron. She likes to lord her success over everyone. I ignored her, focusing on my brother. Aaron, I love you. You're my brother. But I can't keep enabling financial decisions that are destroying your future. $50,000 in credit card debt while buying luxury items is a path to bankruptcy. Aaron finally looked me in the eyes. Sid, we really are in trouble. The minimum payments alone are killing us. We can't keep up. Then sell the boat, I said. Cancel the Florida condo purchase. Get rid of the new car. Cut up the credit cards. And talk to a legitimate financial counselor about a debt management plan. We can't just cancel everything, he protested. We'd lose our deposits. Then you've made your choice, I said firmly. If you're unwilling to take basic steps to address your financial crisis, I'm not willing to bail you out. My mother stood up now too, her face flushed with anger. I can't believe how selfish you've become. Success has changed you. I'm the same person I've always been, I said. The difference is I'm finally seeing our family dynamic clearly. I began gathering plates from the table and carrying them to the kitchen. I need you all to leave, I said over my shoulder. Leave, my mother echoed, incredulous. It's Thanksgiving, we're staying the weekend. Not anymore, I said, beginning to place leftovers in containers. I'm packing food for you to take with you. Your overnight bags are still in your cars, I believe. This is ridiculous, my father bellowed. You can't just throw us out because we asked for a little help. I turned to face them again. First, $50,000 is not a little help. Second, this isn't about the money. It's about the realization that none of you see me as a person. I'm a resource to you, nothing more. That's not true, Aaron protested weakly. When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? I asked him. Or remembered my birthday without me reminding you? Or showed any interest in my life beyond what I could do for you? He had no answer. I continued packing food into containers while my family remained at the table, shock gradually giving way to anger. My mother tried a different approach: Sidonia honey. I think we've all gotten a little emotional here. Let's all calm down and talk about this rationally tomorrow. I've never been more rational in my life, I replied. The containers are disposable, so you don't need to worry about returning them. Jasmine stood up, pulling on Aaron's arm. Let's go. We don't need to be treated like this. My parents will help us. Good, I said. I'm glad you found another source of support. As I continued working, my family remained seated, apparently unable to believe I was serious. I finished packing the food, then stepped back into the dining room. I'm going to call my friend Catherine to come over, I announced. I'd appreciate it if you would all be gone by the time she arrives. That finally spurred them to action. My mother began crying loud theatrical sobs that might have moved me in the past. My father stomped around muttering about ingratitude. Aaron looked torn, but Jasmine pulled him toward the door. When no one made a move to actually leave, I stepped into my office and called Catherine, explaining the situation briefly. She lived just 10 minutes away and promised to come right over. I returned to find my family still there, my mother now appealing to my guilt. After all we've been through together, she was saying. Your father and I sacrificed everything for you children. I didn't respond, simply continued cleaning up. You think you're better than us, my father said accusingly. Always have, going off to your fancy college, moving to the big city, looking down on how we live. I never looked down on you, I said quietly. I just wanted something different for myself. The doorbell rang. Catherine had arrived. That's my friend, I said. I'll walk you out. This isn't over, my mother hissed as she gathered her purse. You'll regret treating family this way. Catherine stood on the porch, taking in the scene with concerned eyes. She stepped forward and introduced herself, her presence calm and grounding. With a witness present, my family finally began moving toward the door. I handed each of them a bag of food as they passed. My father refused to take his. My mother snatched hers with a glare. Aaron accepted his with downcast eyes. Jasmine ignored hers completely. Happy Thanksgiving, I said as they stepped onto the porch. Drive safely. I closed the door before they could respond, then turned to Catherine, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. She wrapped me in a tight hug, not asking questions yet, just offering support. Through the window, I watched them get into their separate cars. My father was gesturing angrily. My mother was still crying. Aaron and Jasmine were having what looked like an intense discussion. As they drove away, I felt a complex mix of emotions: devastation at what I'd lost, relief at having finally stood up for myself, and terror at what would come next. I'd just cut off my entire family on Thanksgiving Day. What kind of person does that? You did the right thing, Catherine said, as if reading my thoughts. From what you've told me over the years, this has been coming for a long time. She helped me clean up the remainder of the Thanksgiving dinner in companionable silence. When we were done, we sat in my living room with cups of tea, and I told her everything that had happened. My phone buzzed constantly throughout the evening, texts from my mother alternating between guilt trips and anger messages from my father demanding I apologize, and a single text from Aaron saying we needed to talk. Jasmine had already posted a vague message on social media about being disrespected by family and learning who truly cared about them on this holiday. I turned my phone off around 10 and fell into an exhausted sleep on the couch, Catherine sleeping in the guest room that had been prepared for my parents. The next week was brutal. The text messages continued, joined by voicemails and emails. Extended family members began reaching out, some concerned, others accusatory. It seemed my parents were spreading their version of events, casting me as the villain who had thrown them out on Thanksgiving for no reason. I went through the motions at work, thankful for the distraction of complex financial problems I could actually solve. In the evenings, I alternated between numbing myself with mindless television and crying until I couldn't breathe. I felt as though I'd lost my entire family in a single day, even as I recognized that what I'd lost was an illusion. The loving family I'd thought I had, or at least hoped to build, had never really existed. By the following weekend, I'd made a decision. I scheduled an appointment with a therapist who specialized in family dynamics. It was time to get professional help to process what had happened and figure out how to move forward. My first session with Dr. Martinez was revelatory. As I described my family history and the Thanksgiving confrontation, she listened intently occasionally, asking clarifying questions, but mostly giving me space to tell my story. When I finished, I felt drained, but somehow lighter, as if speaking the truth aloud had begun to lift a weight I'd been carrying for years. What you're describing, Dr. Martinez said gently, has elements of financial abuse. It's not the typical pattern we see in romantic relationships, but the dynamic is similar. Your family has been using emotional manipulation to extract financial support while giving little back in terms of genuine care or interest in your well-being. Financial abuse. The term shocked me, yet it fit perfectly. I'd never considered that family members could engage in this type of behavior, but as Dr. Martinez explained, the patterns, I recognized my situation clearly. Together, we developed a plan for establishing and maintaining boundaries. The first step was practical. I needed to protect myself financially. The following day, I met with my own financial advisor, someone I trusted from a different firm than mine, to ensure no conflicts of interest. We reviewed my assets and created additional security measures to protect my accounts. I hadn't thought this necessary, but my advisor pointed out that my family had access to personal information that could potentially be used to attempt access to my finances, especially if they became desperate. I also began carefully documenting all past financial gifts to my family. While I didn't intend to take legal action, my advisor suggested having clear records would protect me if any disputes arose. This process was emotionally difficult, as it forced me to confront just how one-sided my family relationships had been. After these practical steps were in place, I drafted a formal letter to my parents and Aaron outlining my decision to cease financial support. I worked on it with Dr. Martinez, ensuring it was clear and firm, while avoiding unnecessarily hurtful language. The final letter was respectful but unambiguous. I would not provide any more money loans or financial bailouts effective immediately. I sent the letters by certified mail to ensure they couldn't claim they hadn't received my decision in writing. Then I waited for the fallout. It came swiftly. My mother's reaction was a barrage of tearful phone calls which I let go to voicemail. My father left angry messages, his voice growing louder with each one until he was practically shouting into my phone. Aaron sent text messages oscillating between apologies and accusations, clearly influenced by whichever family member he'd spoken to most recently. The coordinated pressure campaign intensified. My parents reached out to other family members who then called me to explain how heartbroken my mother was, how my father was under so much stress, how I was tearing the family apart with my selfishness. Each call felt like a fresh wound, but I held firm, repeating my boundaries calmly and ending conversations that became manipulative. To my surprise, not everyone took my parents' side. Two of my aunts, my mother's sisters, reached out with very different messages. Aunt Sarah, who had initially alerted me to my parents' negative characterization of me, to the extended family called to offer support. "Your mother's always been this way," she told me. Even as a child, she expected others to solve her problems and became furious when they wouldn't. "I'm proud of you for finally drawing a line." Aunt Beth echoed similar sentiments, revealing that she'd stopped lending my parents money years ago after multiple unpaid loans. "The fact that you continued supporting them this long shows your generosity, not their entitlement," she said firmly. These conversations were balm for my wounded spirit, confirmation that I wasn't crazy or selfish for establishing boundaries. They also provided valuable insight into how long-standing these patterns had been in my family. About 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, the situation escalated dramatically. I was at work in the middle of a meeting with an important client when my receptionist interrupted to tell me my parents were in the lobby refusing to leave until they spoke with me. I excused myself from the meeting, mortified and angry. When I reached the lobby, I found my parents creating a scene, my mother in tears and my father red-faced, and gesturing emphatically to the increasingly uncomfortable receptionist. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" I asked quietly, acutely aware of the professional environment they were disrupting. "You won't answer our calls," my mother said accusingly. "What choice did we have?" "This is my workplace," I said firmly. "This is completely inappropriate. I need you to leave immediately." "Not until you've heard us out," my father insisted, his voice too loud for the quiet office. "We've driven 3 hours to get here. Then you should have called first, I replied. I have clients and colleagues here. This is my livelihood you're disrupting. My mother began crying harder. Your livelihood. What about our lives? The bank is threatening foreclosure again. We could lose our home because of your selfishness. Several of my colleagues had emerged from their offices drawn by the commotion. My humiliation was complete when our security officer approached, asking if there was a problem. Yes, these people need to leave, I said, my voice shaking. If they won't go voluntarily, please escort them out. Were her parents? My father shouted, as if that gave them the right to behave this way. The security officer was professional but firm. I'm sorry, sir, but if Ms. Sawyer asks you to leave, you need to comply. Otherwise, we'll have to call the police. Eventually, they left, my mother's sobs and my father's angry muttering echoing through the lobby. I returned to my client meeting, offering a brief professional apology for the interruption. The client was understanding, but I was deeply shaken. That evening, I received a call from Aaron. For once, he didn't ask for money or make excuses. His voice was low and serious. Sid, we need to talk. Things are really bad with Jasmine. What do you mean? I asked cautiously. He hesitated. The credit card situation is worse than I told you. We're actually at about 70,000, not 50. And Jasmine's spending hasn't slowed down. Every time I try to talk about it, she gets defensive or starts crying. I sighed. I'm sorry to hear that, Aaron. It sounds like a difficult situation. The thing is, he continued, the bank is threatening to foreclose on our house. We've missed 3 mortgage payments because we've been trying to keep up with the credit card minimums. Despite everything, my heart ached for my brother. Aaron, you need professional financial help. This isn't something I can solve for you. I know, he said, surprising me. That's not why I called. Well, not entirely. I wanted to say I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. What Jasmine said was way out of line. And I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. His apology, the first genuine one from any family member, caught me off guard. Thank you for saying that. It's just, he continued, we're drowning Sid. I don't know what to do. His voice broke. I might lose everything. The old me would have immediately offered to help to bail him out one more time. But I thought of Dr. Martinez's words about enabling harmful behaviors and took a deep breath. Aaron, I can't give you money, I said gently, but I can help you find resources. There are nonprofit credit counseling agencies that can help negotiate with creditors. You'd need to commit to significant lifestyle changes, though. He was silent for a moment. Like what? Like selling the boat and the new car, canceling the Florida condo if that's still possible, cutting up the credit cards, creating and sticking to a strict budget. Jasmine would never agree to that, he said quietly. Then you're choosing your relationship with Jasmine over your financial security, I pointed out. That's your decision to make, but I won't subsidize it. The conversation ended soon after, with Aaron promising to think about what I'd said. I wasn't sure if he'd follow through, but I felt good about maintaining my boundary while still offering the help I could reasonably give advice and referrals, not money. As Christmas approached, I faced the prospect of my first holiday season alone. The thought was both terrifying and strangely liberating. No tense family gatherings, no financial requests disguised as holiday cheer, no walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. Instead, I created new traditions with my chosen family, my friends who had supported me through this difficult time. Catherine invited me to join her family for Christmas Eve dinner. My colleague Michael and his husband included me in their annual holiday brunch. I volunteered serving meals at a local shelter on Christmas Day and found unexpected joy in the simple act of helping others without expectation of return. My parents attempted reconciliation as the holiday approached, calling with tentative invitations to their Christmas celebration. Each call carefully avoided acknowledging their behavior or apologizing, focusing instead on family obligation and tradition. You can't miss Christmas with your family, my mother insisted during one call. What would people think? I don't care what people think, I replied truthfully. If you want to rebuild our relationship, we need to address what happened at Thanksgiving and the patterns that led to it. I'd be happy to meet with you and a family therapist to work through these issues. A therapist, my mother exclaimed, sounding scandalized. We don't need some stranger telling us how to be a family. Then I won't be coming for Christmas, I said simply. It hurt to spend the holidays without the family I'd known my entire life, but I recognized it as a necessary pain part of the healing process. Like setting a broken bone so it could mend properly, this temporary separation was essential for any healthy relationship to potentially grow in the future. The 6 months following that fateful Thanksgiving transformed my life in ways I never could have anticipated. The absence of constant financial drain from my family immediately improved my economic situation, but the emotional and psychological benefits were far more profound. I continued regular sessions with Dr. Martinez, working through layers of guilt obligation and enmeshed family dynamics. Gradually, I began to recognize how these patterns had affected not just my relationship with my family, but other areas of my life as well. It'd been unconsciously attracting friends and even potential romantic partners who took more than they gave, repeating the familiar dynamic of being valued primarily for what I could provide rather than who I was. With this awareness came the opportunity for change. I became more discerning about the people I allowed into my life, seeking relationships based on mutual respect and reciprocity. I deepened connections with friends like Catherine, who had demonstrated genuine care, and I allowed myself to let go of one-sided friendships that drained rather than nourished me. My professional life flourished as well. Without the constant stress of family financial crises, I had more emotional energy for my work and clients. I received a significant promotion 3 months after Thanksgiving, becoming the youngest partner in my firm's history. The achievement was bittersweet, no family to share it with, but also no family asking how much more money I could give them because of it. One unexpected outcome of my experience was finding community with others who'd gone through similar situations. During a casual conversation with a client, I mentioned some aspects of my family financial dynamic. She shared that she'd experienced something similar with her siblings and recommended a support group for people dealing with family financial exploitation. I was hesitant at first, uncomfortable with the label, and unsure if my situation qualified. But my first meeting was another revelation. As I listened to others' stories, I recognized so many patterns from my own experience. The guilt trips, the manipulation, the implicit and explicit expectations, that success meant unlimited obligation. The group provided validation and practical strategies for maintaining boundaries. Inspired by the support I'd received, I worked with the community center to start another group specifically focused on financial boundaries using my professional expertise to help others understand healthy financial relationships. In April, about 5 months after Thanksgiving, I received an unexpected call from Aaron. It had been weeks since we'd spoken, our last conversation ending in frustration when he once again hinted at needing money. Sid, he began, then paused for so long, I thought we'd lost the connection. I left Jasmine. The statement was so unexpected that for a moment I couldn't respond. What happened? I finally asked. You were right, he said simply. About everything. She refused to make any changes to address our debt. When I sold my boat to try to catch up on bills, she went out and bought a $5,000 designer handbag. He sighed heavily. When I confronted her, she suggested we sue you for family support. That was my breaking point. So sorry, Aaron, I said, genuinely pained for him despite everything. That's really hard. Yeah, well, it's also a relief, he admitted. I'm staying with a friend for now, filed for divorce last week. I'm working with one of those credit counseling agencies you mentioned. It's going to take years to dig out of this hole, but at least I'm not making it deeper anymore. A tentative warmth began to grow in my chest. I'm proud of you, Aaron. That took courage. The thing is, he continued, his voice growing uncertain. I miss my sister. Not her money, not what she can do for me, just her. The person who used to beat me at Monopoly and help me with my science projects and stand up for me when kids at school were mean. Tears pricked at my eyes. I miss my brother too. Do you think we could get coffee sometime? He asked. Just to talk. I understand if you don't want to after everything. I'd like that, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. We met the following weekend at a quiet cafe halfway between our homes. The conversation was awkward at first, years of dysfunction creating a barrier between us. But as we talked, glimpses of our childhood connection began to emerge. We reminisced about family camping trips and school adventures, memories untainted by the financial dynamics that had later corrupted our relationship. Aaron had brought something with him, a handwritten plan for repaying a small portion of what I'd given him over the years. The amount was symbolic rather than substantial, but the gesture itself meant everything. He wasn't asking for more money, he was acknowledging the imbalance and taking responsibility for his part in it. I don't expect to repay everything, he said honestly, but I want you to know I understand what I've taken from you, and I'm sorry. I found myself returning home with a fragile hope that perhaps one relationship from my family might be salvageable. Not immediately, not without clear boundaries and consistent behavior change, but possibly over time. My parents' journey took longer. It was only after they truly faced financial reality without my safety net that they began to recognize what they'd done. When their car finally broke down beyond repair, and they couldn't afford to replace it when the winter heating bills piled up without my check to cover them. When the reality of their financial situation became unavoidable, something shifted. My father called first in early May. The conversation was stilted, his pride clearly at war with his need to make amends. He didn't exactly apologize, but he acknowledged that they'd come to rely on me in ways that weren't fair. "We've been doing some thinking, your mother and I," he said gruffly. "Maybe we did take advantage a bit. You worked hard for what you've got. We should have respected that more." It wasn't the full acknowledgement I might have wished for, but from my proud father, it was significant. When I suggested again that we consider family therapy if we wanted to rebuild our relationship, he didn't immediately reject the idea. "Let me talk to your mother about it," he said. "Well, think about it." 2 weeks later, they agreed to a session. It was tense and difficult, with my mother in particular struggling to acknowledge any problematic behavior. But it was a start. We scheduled monthly sessions, agreeing to use that structured environment to work on our communication and boundaries. I made it clear from the beginning that financial support was off the table indefinitely. If we were to have any relationship moving forward, it had to be built on something other than money. They claimed to accept this, though I remained cautious, watching for signs of the old patterns reemerging. To my surprise, my mother found a part-time job at a local gift shop, and my father took on some consulting work for a former colleague. They began to take responsibility for their financial situation in ways they hadn't for years. Our conversations, though still somewhat strained, started to include topics beyond their financial needs, my work, their activities, current events. As summer approached, I felt ready to take another step in my healing journey. The spreadsheet where I'd tracked all my family contributions had served its purpose in helping me see the reality of our dynamic. Now it was time to let it go, not to enable further financial entanglement, but to free myself from the emotional weight of those transactions. In a symbolic gesture, I renamed the substantial sum that had once been earmarked as the Family Emergency Fund, redesignating it for causes that aligned with my values. Part went to a scholarship for first-generation college students. Another portion supported financial literacy programs for young women. The remainder I invested in a donor-advised fund that would allow me to contribute to meaningful causes for years to come. On the personal front, I began dating again, this time with healthier expectations and clearer boundaries. I met James through a friend at a charity event I normally would have been too busy or stressed to attend. He was kind, accomplished in his own right, and refreshingly straightforward. When he learned about my family situation, he didn't offer platitudes or judgment, just understanding and support. Our relationship developed slowly, both of us taking time to ensure we were connecting authentically. There was no financial imbalance, no sense that either of us was valued for what we could provide rather than who we were. It was the healthiest relationship I'd ever experienced, and it helped me see how much my family dynamics had colored my expectations of all relationships. As I reflect on the journey from that Thanksgiving confrontation to today, I realize that Jasmine's cruel words, as painful as they were in the moment, ultimately gave me an incredible gift: the clarity to see what had been happening and the courage to change it. The words, "your parents only love you when you're paying their bills," shattered the illusion I'd been carefully maintaining, forcing me to confront the painful truth of my family relationships. But from that shattering came the opportunity to rebuild something more authentic, whether with my existing family or with the chosen family I continued to cultivate. I now understand that true family supports rather than exploits, celebrates rather than envies, and gives as generously as it receives. Some of these connections may be with blood relatives, as I'm cautiously rebuilding with Aaron, and tentatively exploring with my parents. Others are with the friends and loved ones who have shown me what healthy relationships actually look like. The greatest lesson I've learned is that we get to choose our family when our birth family fails us. We get to establish boundaries that protect our well being. We get to decide what love looks like in our lives and to reject manipulative facsimiles of it, no matter how familiar they may feel. The freedom from financial manipulation is perhaps the best gift I ever gave myself. It allowed me to discover who I truly am beyond the role of family provider and to build a life rich in authentic connections rather than transactional relationships disguised as love. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family? What helped you find the courage to stand up for yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories about finding strength through life's challenges. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to break unhealthy patterns even when it hurts.